Ron and I used to race against, kind of Greg Tracy, who was just starting to be a stunt man at that point. So he was building his career, and he kind of took me under his wing a little bit and brought me into the industry. And so, man, I went from Driven to, Raced Witch Mountain, which is a great second movie, to Talladega Nights, to, some other really fun stuff.
Yeah, Ford versus Ferrari, just that.
Ferrari, and Gran Turismo, yeah.
Right.
The movie called Ford versus Ferrari.
Fast and Furious. Yeah, just things like that. Yeah, no, we'll
Gran Turismo, that was another great one.
Right.
I got a pretty cool job for, driving a race car for a living, first of all, but to drive back then a dragster and then get hired by Snake later on. But here was Jon doing movies and driving drag stuff part-time at the same time. So I was always, people were like, you got the best job. I'm like, yeah, except one guy I know.
Yeah,
He's got
one
a little
guy.
bit better job. And Jon was running around the country. Just felt like it was going to be our day, or a good chance at it. And it just kaboom. And, all of a sudden it's a convertible. And in a funny car, if you see that much light, something's wrong. That means the body's gone. And a lot of things happened. Piece of the body went in the parachute, so it hadn't slow me down. And then the car had something on the front end, and it just shot over the opposite wall at a bad angle, just hit the wall. And it was, ironically, it was a lot like John Force's wreck last year that we all watched, that has pretty much put an end to his career. So it was a hard hit. And it was just, I was very lucky really to walk away. I've been in a bunch of stuff like that, just nothing that bad.
Some of the fun stuff we did for Ford versus Ferrari was really fun. I drove that little Porsche. It was obviously a kit car, but still amazing. It had a little Subaru engine in it, and that thing would handle so good. Everybody else was struggling trying to get through some of the scenes. So we do them first at 50% speed, and come back at 75%, and we do the real take. And I'm coming through there. What I think is 50% of this car would be, and the guys in the Ferraris or the Ford couldn't get through the corners as well, and so I'd have to take a lot off the speed just because it wouldn't look right. Hi, I'm Jon Capps. This is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
Hey everybody, it's Jon Capps. This is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
What a pleasure to have two icons in their own right on this program. It's the first time we've had brothers debuting on the show. Jon, welcome in.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Ron, what a great pleasure to have you as well.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
So this program is about cars and culture, and I think the culture of having two brothers so closely associated with the industry is probably its own culture, isn't it? Jon, do you want to take that to lead off?
Yeah, the culture. I mean, the drag racing industry is a pretty small industry. It's all just a bunch of families kind of doing the same thing. My other side of my life is the automotive training industry. I work with automotive manufacturers doing training, dealerships, and stuff like that. And also involved in the stunt industry. So another big family.
Right. But a family that stays together, races together, has been involved in all this together. It's kind of remarkable, isn't it, Ron?
Yeah. Jon and I were pretty lucky to grow up with the parents that we had. Our dad, we grew up on the central coast of California, San Luis Obispo, Santa Maria area. When we were kids, there was a drag strip there in Santa Maria that was an old aircraft landing strip. And it had a go-kart track. So that was a big part of our lives. But our mom actually drove and worked on her dad's car and actually taught us how to pack parachutes when we were probably 6 years old. So we'd been around the racing part of things, but we went to spectate a lot when my dad wasn't racing. So there's times our dad would have a Lola Can-Am car in our driveway when we were kids, for a guy that he built a motor for, or he'd have a sprint car, or we'd be off helping or watching him work on somebody's race car. So we grew up with a pretty cool childhood. Big wheels with worn out rear tires from sliding around, and just it was always something about racing something with Jon and I. So it's kind of cool how our lives turned out.
Let's go back to your mom. She was the inspiration for packing parachutes. I mean, was she a racer from the time that she could drive?
Yeah, well, it wasn't it. Jon's 5 years younger than me, and I just remember, and I'm sure he'll tell you the same thing. Our garage always had somebody's car, if not our dad's race car. But every night, our mom would be out there with my dad putting an engine together, helping him hold the backside of a bolt, putting a crankshaft in a motor, whatever it might be. She was always very involved. But when I was very young, what I learned was, and John and I later heard all the stories, is, we don't talk about street racing now, but the American Graffiti days that's when our parents got together in 63, 64. I was born in 65. My dad grew up in the Valley, our dad, I should say. And when they got together, my dad got more pleasure out of building a streetcar and putting our 4'8" mom in the driver's seat with blocks on the pedals and having her whip somebody's ass instead of him driving. and so she was very good at driving also. So as we grew up, we didn't even realize. I mean, there was Shirley Cha-Cha Muldowney, right? Major
Sure.
name in the sport of drag racing that really broke a lot of barriers. But we sort of had our own Shirley Cha-Cha that we grew up with. We didn't even think there was a difference. I remember being on the back of a motorcycle. I'm sure John does as well, with our mom hiking us somewhere. I don't even know where, but just she was always a gearhead. So she was always, when I say packing the parachutes, yes, she packed my dad's chute. And I think we both learned early on just how to work on different parts of the car. And we were sort of the crew. When I was 10 and John was 5, there's pictures of us running around the drag strip.
John, what do you remember?
I remember getting beat up a lot.
Not by your mother.
Yeah, big wheels. We were always doing crazy stuff, and then we had a giant skateboard ramp in our front driveway that my dad had built for us. It had a couple feet of vertical on it, and so all the kids around the block would come ride our ramp, right? And there's pictures of both us, Ron and I, up at the very top, crisscrossing at the same time, up there way before X Games. And so growing up at the racetrack, Bakersfield actually was kind of our track that we used to go to quite a bit over there in Formosa. And I just remember riding around on our motorcycles, doing things that we thought nobody could see, and coming back and having giant orange peels stuck to the bottom of the motorcycle and getting yelled at for climbing the orange hills. And actually, I remember the craziest memory I have is actually it rained one day and they had a helicopter drying the track in Bakersfield.
Wow.
That's one of my strongest memories as a kid.
Wow. When did each of you decide that you wanted to pursue, the similar area but different paths? Ron, I'll start with you. When did you know that racing was what you wanted to do?
I don't mean to speak for John. We sort of both wanted to. We wanted to. So we had that taste of a go-kart early on. I remember I got into somebody, I was way younger. So John was super young when our dad brought home like an old go-kart with a McCulloch like engine on it. And it was scary, like scary old school kart. I'm not sure what brand it was. But then fast forward a little bit more, we got into karting, and ironically, the Santa Maria track, John and I raced for the Santa Maria area, and they have these different races that was like a Tri-Valley, they call us Bakersfield, and the Fresno area, and even LA. And John and I, we didn't have a whole lot of money in our family, but we always left with trophies. Our dad taught us how to do more with less, and concentrate on how to work on them, how to know how it handled, why, what did what when you changed anything on the setup of the carts. And then John went to work for a guy that had a Yamaha dealership that built carts, was national champion kart builder in San Luis Obispo. So he always had really good motors built. We had older carts, and just kind of, that was our first kind of foray into like serious racing of any type, even though our dad was a drag racer growing up. And then from then, after the go-karting stuff, I would go help different people in our area that had dragsters and different kinds of drag racing stuff with my dad. We had some pretty good people that traveled the country racing. So we would tag along and work on that. But the actual racing, I think, sort of started with all that go-karting. And John won a bunch of trophies. He was working for that guy. And just, I think that was, for me anyway, I think that was the first like taste of how cool would it be to do this every weekend of some type of racing.
John, your own trajectory?
Um, well, I mean, obviously, when I went in the military, got out of the military, and got back involved in racing. Ron had just kind of gotten transitioned from being a crew guy or a crew chief on an alcohol dragster, and got an opportunity to get his license to drive. And I had just gotten out of service at that point, and so I went to work as a crew guy, working on the race team and doing that kind of thing. And so that was kind of my involvement. So for a while, I thought I wanted to kind of, it didn't seem like I had enough money or whatever to be a driver. And so I kind of started focusing on the tuning side of things, or working on side of things. And so I was kind of figured that was going to be my direction, and got involved, and was able to drive some dirt cars, some USAC 3/4 midgets. And so that kind of threw me back into the excitement of driving and the passion of what it takes. And so I kind of got involved in that, stopped working as a crew guy, and started going the circle track route. And from there, the IRL split happened. And so I figured, wow, I might have a good opportunity to go to Race Indy at this point, and the pie in the sky kind of thing. And so that was kind of where I got back involved in the driving side of things, from being outside the racing industry and coming back in.
And stunt driving. How in the world do you lead to that direction?
So I was actually, when I had just moved to Vegas from Indianapolis, and when I was in Indianapolis, I was working at night, doing some welding for a guy who was building a company that was a IndyCar driving experience. At that time, it was called Driving 101.
Sure.
Now it's the Mario Andretti, I believe, experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got involved with those guys. I was their head driver, setting all the limits and making sure all their drivers had, certifications and everything, and safety wise. And then some guys came out and were going to be filming a movie called Driven with Sylvester Stallone. And so they ended up using some of our cars. So I was actually able to get involved in that, and then met a guy that Ron and I used to race against, a guy named Greg Tracy, who was just starting to be a stunt man at that point. So he was building his career, and he kind of took me under his wing a little bit and brought me into the industry. And so, man, I went from Driven to, Race to Witch Mountain, which is a great second movie, to Talladega Nights, to, some other really fun stuff.
Yeah. Ford versus Ferrari, just that.
Ferrari and Gran Turismo. Yeah.
Right.
The movie called Ford versus Ferrari.
Fast and Furious. Yeah. Just things like that. Yeah. No, we'll
Gran Turismo. That was another great one.
Right. Ron, was that funny for you? I mean, here you are on the track, and you're watching your brother on the screen in certain cases.
Yeah. Well, but going back to his midget days, I had just gotten my license, and I was just getting the news I was going to get a chance to drive a top fuel dragster. That was like, that's the biggest break you could ever have. If you don't have money, it just never happens. And so, like Jon said, he was working on our crew, but then he got into the midgets, had a deal with Pennzoil. And so I would go watch him. And it's ironic that sort of time before he moved, I don't know if you remember, Jon, like we went to Ventura or something. And it's the year that Tony Stewart won the Triple Crown and all that. And that was right. One of the races. So Tony and I talk about that still to this day. But Jon was, the West Coast of USAC midgets was as hard probably to race as it was Indy area or the Midwest. So with him doing that, it was funny because I was kind of getting my start in the top fuel thing. He was doing that. He ended up meeting the girl that ran Simpson Race Products. So I was on a deal for Simpson helmets and fire suits. He ended up marrying her. She now works for us, but they've been married this whole time. But it was fun because he was sort of doing all that. But when, like he talked about, the movie stuff just sort of started back then, he was still kind of jumping in and out of midgets. And Thursday Night Thunder, I remember he raced IRP one night, driving somebody's car, midget. And but yeah, as the movie thing started, I'm like, I got a pretty cool job for driving a race car for a living, first of all, but to drive back then a dragster and then get hired by Snake later on. But here was Jon doing movies and driving drag stuff part-time at the same time. So like I was always, people were like, you got the best job. I'm like, yeah, except one guy that I know.
Yeah,
who's got
one
a little
guy.
bit better job. And
yeah.
Jon was running around the country. And so, yeah, it was fun to watch that sort of take off and then have him come race once in a while in the drag race stuff as well.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, you're right. It is the best of both worlds. Jon, although I know you have a burning desire to get back into racing or to, as you told me off air, to do more of it in general. Bottom line is that you as we tape this, I mean, last month you had a pretty good You had a pretty good month of March back in the funny cars, right?
I did. It was amazing. I already spoke a little bit about Bakersfield, the Famoso Dragway. I got a chance to win the March meet, which is a huge race in the nostalgia drag racing world, in the drag racing world, period. New ride, never met the team, stepped into the car, and we did very well. Won that, and then I was asked to drive a car, a big show Nitro Funny Car, like the one Ron runs, for a team that was getting their license for their driver on the following day after the race. So we went out there, and we didn't do anything dumb, and I didn't make myself look stupid. So it's kind of really easy to do if you don't drive these things a lot. There's a lot of things that go on to make things right in a quick 4-second run or 3.8 second run. A lot of things that go on that you can really make yourself look really dumb. And thankfully I didn't do that. So it's a good month.
Indeed. So Jon goes from movies back into racing. Ron, I know you have appeared in, what was it, Snake and Mongoose? You were in the film, right?
Yeah.
So you've both cross-pollinated to some extent. You've found your way into each other's worlds back and forth, right, Ron?
Yeah. When we signed the Napa Auto Parts deal, that was the start of that sponsorship. And the very first thing I did before I started driving for them was fly out, and we shot back. Napa Auto Parts always run national commercials on networks, and they've had Dale Jr. and Dale Sr. and Michael Waltrip, and they've always had great, funny commercials. Well, when we got the deal signed, the first thing was I spent like 3 days in Charlotte. We shot all the first season, like 6 commercials, which are, now looking back, they're some of the best, funniest. But so I was able to call Jon, because he was pretty much doing that full time, and get advice on what to do here with SAG and what to. And so, yeah, I got a taste of it there, and then got to be in a couple movies and shot a lot of commercials. So yeah, it's funny how we both kind of weave back and forth in and out of both businesses, I guess. Now being a team owner, my fourth year as a team owner, we've always dreamt about being able to race together, and it's been just such a whirlwind for me, trying to make it out there with all the big teams and all the big budgets and the wealthy guys that have teams. And but probably the coolest part was a couple years ago when they were shooting the the Ferrari movie, and then Gran Turismo. Jon was back there. I think the Ferrari movie in Italy was being shot. Then he got asked to go to shoot the Gran Turismo while he was there, and that was shot where, Jon? That was not Dubai. No. So I was at home, and I wake up in the mornings to get ready to fly to a race, and he had been on the time difference, was sending me little clips. Hopefully the producers and directors don't get mad I'm telling you this, but so we had a WhatsApp, and I would wake up to these cool videos of them shooting crazy stuff that we later saw in the movie. And it was just little clips and pictures of them sitting in these Ferraris that were priceless, that were in the movie. Like literally people were letting them use these priceless Ferraris, one of a kind, in different shots with old school helmets, and the way they redid Le Mans, just all kinds of really cool stuff that he would send. So I would get that, and get up at 4 a.m, see what they had done, and then off to the races myself. So it's been fun to kind of watch his career at the same time. Yeah,
amazing. Jon, let's talk about the movies. And we'll start with, how hard is it to be a stunt car driver? I mean, this is not something that most people aspire to do, but they'd love to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the joke is, I'm going to get in trouble for this. It's things you do in a rental car anyways. Not true. The industry is really tough for me, because as you can imagine, there's a ton of guys that have ability to drive a car, right? But then there's another level of guys that have great car control. Guys like Tanner Faust, amazing car control, has driven just about everything. I think I drive just about everything there is, and Tanner does more. Yeah. And I was telling you off the air a little bit, if I picked one industry that's harder to get into and stay successful in than racing, is the stunt world. And
why is that?
Because there's so many drivers out there, and there's so fewer spots, right? And the directors and the stunt coordinators like to try and keep a core group of people together because everybody else's idiosyncrasies, right? So like when we're doing a scene, we'll literally walk through a scene, and everybody's you're here. At this call on the mic, you do this, you do that. If something goes wrong, here's my out. So at all times, where everybody's at around you. You know what they're going to do in case things go bad. Mm-hmm. So we prepare more for if things go bad than it actually prepare for things going well.
Does CGI, AI, green screens, do they take a lot of that away?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about this the other day, actually. The Ferrari movie was great, I thought. Michael Mann Ferrari. The one thing that everybody is kind of bummed out about is the crash sequence. And then the gentleman lost control of the car, and they CGI'd it into a telephone pole. The crash itself was amazing. If they were just shot and left the crash itself in, we had these mannequins that were jelly-filled mannequins. And when I tell you that crash happened, and when we were able to go out and look at it, it was like a war zone. It was amazingly horrific. If they would have just done that and tried not to take it over the top, I think that movie would have been 100% for everybody. But the CGI stuff just never really comes off well when you're talking about a high-speed vehicle. It's hard to replicate.
What was that like to shoot that movie? I know parts of it were done in Georgia. It's not all done in France. Most of it's not done in France. But what was it like? I know you told a story recently about the producers and the directors shutting down a certain stretch of highway that was near some homes, and you're racing at 3:00 in the morning, and people are getting really upset that you're doing that in rural Georgia. But what was the rest of it like?
The Ford versus Ferrari. Yeah, we shot that.
Ford versus Ferrari. Yeah.
Statesville, on this little old road out there. We shot some of it in Savannah there's the track across a little island over there that was supposed to be an Indy Lights track. So we shot that. That was a lot of the sequence. The house corner was at the track in Statesville.
Yep.
Sorry, Savannah. So in that road, we had this 4-mile stretch of open country road, and literally we had to have sheriffs at every driveway because these people that were living there were not happy with us racing up and down the road at 3:00 in the morning with 9 cars that were full straight pipe, louder than heck. We had some interesting run-ins with some locals, but it was amazing and stuff you could never really, replicate.
They may have been talking French to you, just not really English. Right?
Yeah. It was a little bit of brackish, yeah. So yeah, I mean, we shot most of that in the first scene. Obviously, was in Willow Springs. That was pretty cool. And then we went to Statesville, and then I think Agua Dulce in Southern California, where they actually rebuilt the whole pit building, the whole building, building. And it was creating offices and all the reporters' rooms and everything. All the small things that you would never ever think would be seen, were spot on.
You've done some interesting stuff, met some interesting people. You're around Vin Diesel. You've been around Matt Damon, right?
Yep.
Obviously Sylvester Stallone, Will Ferrell. Any stories?
Oh, he had McDreamy call his wife, so he's one up me already.
Okay, so I was going to say, any interesting stories, and there's one. So let's go for it, John.
That's all I heard about. He's mom's favorite again. So
what did you do with Patrick Dempsey?
So Patrick Dempsey, everybody says how nice he is. It doesn't compare. The guy is an amazing human. He's nicer than, which makes me even angrier at him because he's good looking.
Right. Of course he's nice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That part. And it started, we're working in the morning there, and my daughter was calling me because she was walking to class. She's going to college. She was a freshman at that point. And I was talking to him. I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to call my daughter. Do you mind getting on? And yeah, absolutely. And so I go, hey, hang on a second. I was FaceTiming her, and I got somebody to talk to you. And he grabs my phone and goes, hey, how you doing? It's Tom Cruise. You might have seen my new movie. And she goes, you're not Tom Cruise. And she freaked out like she was a huge, huge fan, and it was so funny. She tried to compose herself. It was funny. So he's a great guy. And then I called my wife because it was her birthday. And what's her birthday? Oh, dang, I got that date wrong again.
That was probably your anniversary.
Yeah, it was. Actually, it was my anniversary. So
there you go.
Spoke to her, And thanks. Oh yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
So he got on the phone, was really, really nice with her, and guy's just amazing person. And it was funny
Wow.
out there to Italy. He's like, you know what? If this car is moving, I want to be in it because he had a stunt double, right? It was actually Paul Dallenbach fan, his amazing race lineage. And Paul had to get his hair dyed white, just like McDreamy had to. And so poor Paul, he didn't hardly work maybe 3 scenes. And we were there for 2 months, and he had to dye his hair white. And
No.
he's like, no, man, this car's moving. I'm gonna be in it. So the one night run we were doing, it was raining and pitch black, and the roads were super narrow and potholes. And we're racing down there with a camera car, the insert car with the cameras and everything on it. And then the race cars were all dodging around each other. And we get back to the main base there, and Dempsey gets out of the car and goes, man, that was crazier than the Mulsanne straight at 3:00 in the morning. So it's some fun stuff.
You said in filmmaking, like so many other jobs, time is money, and a stunt driver who can't deliver on demand won't find a lot of work. You also said you never want to crash a car until the script calls for it, right?
Yeah, don't do anything for free.
Ron, you know a couple things about cars that might have issues, including recently. I want to talk about what happened to you, and just get a sense of, first of all, make sure that you're okay. During the first round of the funny car eliminations in Arizona recently, there was an explosion before the finish line. You said, look, I was just happy to walk away. What happened there?
Yeah, it was you drive a funny car, it's you're going to have those. It's not if, it's like how many, right, in your career. So I've been driving them 30 years, 29 years funny car, and 30 years in total. And this one was different. It was sudden. We were leading the race. We had a great car. We'd won the All-Star thing the day before. It was just felt like it was going to be our day, or a good chance at it. And it just kaboom. And, all of a sudden it's a convertible, and in a funny car, if you see that much light, something's wrong. That means the body's gone. And a lot of things happened. Piece of the body went in the parachute, so it hadn't slowed me down. And then the car had something on the front end, and it just shot over the opposite wall at a bad angle, and it hit the wall. And it was, ironically, it was a lot like John Force's wreck last year that we all watched, that has pretty much put an end to his career. So it was a hard hit. And it was just, I was very lucky really to walk away. I've been in a bunch of stuff like that, just nothing that bad. And luckily my daughter works for a dentist. She just made a mouthpiece, one of those shock type of mouthpieces that I just started wearing, or probably would have shattered a bunch of teeth. My guys had just made an upgrade to our cockpit padding because of what happened to John Force the year before and his accident. And then before that, Eric Medlin that we lost, that was killed when his head got shaken. Our guys made a lot of improvements, and thankfully, had I not had those two things, I probably would be a little bit different right now. And so just crazy how it worked out. As a team owner, I was more worried about the money and the parts, and probably did a couple $100,000, if not $250,000 in damage, scrapped everything pretty much on the car.
Wow.
So that was a bummer. But other than that, I was lucky, and we've gone on. We went to the very next race, went to the #1 spot with a backup car. So the guys, we got a great team. Just very lucky to walk away from it.
John, you can relate to stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had just made my run. I was down at the far end. They're going to do a little interview with us, So I was standing there watching on the monitor, and as soon as I saw the explosion and him make the hard contact, I started running towards a golf cart, was going to jump on and start going that way. And his team manager, Paul Mecca, jumped in, and we got on the track, and I stopped, and I just waved him off, and we just kind of went to it. Probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but I mean, it was amazingly difficult to watch. It always is. But, like you said, he's got the greatest guys there is, and they do a really good job. Safety Safari, NHRA Safety Safari does a great job keeping us safe. But it doesn't change the fact when, it's someone else in there that you know and care about that does that stuff. I mean, I don't even like watching from the grandstands. It's like, it's hard to watch these things go down the track. Like, man, that's crazy. Who get one of those things? Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Ron, did you ever find out that, I know you were going to look into the G-forces or the speed that you hit at. Did you ever figure that out?
No, either they haven't released it. We'd
Yeah.
actually put the NHRA and one of our manufacturers put a box on there, sort of a black box type of thing. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. The G's are
It
up
doesn't
there.
matter. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I was
Right.
told approximately where it was, and it was in double digits, pretty high double digits. So it was a hard hit.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to ask you, Ron, you've driven for some amazing talents through the years, both named Don. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your experience being around those two legends?
Well, Snake, Don Prudhomme, obviously, you just talked about the movie they made, which is a great movie. It's a great story, but it's a great thing to watch as a race fan if you haven't seen it. Snake and the Mongoose movie. I think it's on Amazon and stuff now, but
Mm-hmm.
just the a lot of little things that John and I were kids. Everybody, you probably did too. The Snake and the Mongoose Hot Wheels sets. I mean, we
Yep.
all grew up that way. I didn't know that it outsold Barbie at one point. That's how popular it was back then. But so obviously idolizing that guy and then having him call and offer me a job to drive for him was a little surreal. And it was even surreal 3 or 4 years in. I mean, sitting in a rental car with them, you know, flying in the jet and land and getting the rental car. And, there's times you look over and you go, my God, I'm driving for Don the Snake Prudhomme. So it was very, very rock starish, thrown right into that pretty much as top as it gets, meeting up with Mario Andretti and going to dinner. We went to Mario's house, AJ Foyt's. I mean, just everything you would think it would be like to be around a legend like that. It was. And so it was very, very cool and very hard to get used to at first because it's literally like being thrown in this rock star thing. Biggest team, best sponsors, biggest name. But a lot came with it, a lot of pressure. Obviously, we won a lot, we did well, but that was, then progress. That was 9 years with Snake, and then I go to Don Schumacher, who was a business guy that owned battery charging company, very wealthy from that, but was an old school racer back in the day, but had developed this multi-car team, uh, up to 7 or 8 teams at one point. And when I went to that team, it was very different. Snake, Don Prudhomme, it's all he's ever done. He's got a book out that's a great book if you get to read it. He is like AJ or like Mario. Those guys that just that's all they did, right? That's all they thought about. Don Schumacher was a business guy, and that was the reason he had these teams. So it was very different from me, but I learned a lot from both of them, and just really made mental notes all through those years because God, it's a lot of years. My whole pretty much adult, life was spent working for those two guys. So when I finally got the chance to be team owner, I had two pretty good people to kind of to look back on. And I found myself a lot of times, John and I would talk about, it'd be cool to have a team someday or, multi-car team. And looking back, I found myself a lot of times just going, hey, if I was a team owner, that's how I would do things too. And maybe I wouldn't do it that way. And just little things throughout those years, but to have those two people to be around and even more so being around going to races and hanging with Roger Penske or hanging with Mr. Hendrick or Richard Petty or Dale Earnhardt like we used to. That's some of the coolest memories because I really got to mentally take notes on some of the best and being around them when they're racing, when we would go to hang out with them or they would come to our races. So you couldn't have asked for two better people to work for.
Roger Penske's going to be on this show again. He was guest number 6, and he'll be probably guest 206. We're always learning from people like Roger, Rick Hendrick, Snake, right? I mean, for
Yeah.
both of you, John and Ron.
Yeah. I
It's
still get, John knows, I get into these little arguments with our team manager because I hate it when they pull the golf cart or the scooters up in front of the pit area and they're not exactly straight. And I got that from Penske's when I went with Snake.
yeah,
One of the IndyCar races years ago. Snake made a comment. He said, "See those scooters over there?" And they were backed in. I think it was whoever's Paul Tracy was driving for him back then, whoever it was.
Sure.
And I just remember the scooters and Snake making a comment that stuck with me. And everything was perfect in front of their hospitality and their pit area. And it just stuck forever. And I still get on my people that work for us and give them crap if it's not parked perfect.
You walk around Indianapolis 500, when he first bought the facility, and he changed the trash cans, he told me. Instead of trash cans that you put in from the top, the trash cans at like at Disney, or they put in from the side, because that takes the garbage. It doesn't overflow the garbage.
Oh.
And he is the one who said, we're going to change our trash cans at Indianapolis. I mean,
that's crazy.
And you both know, having been in and around the facilities that are that he brings into the track, you could eat off the floor. I mean,
yep.
Yeah. Jon, I want to talk about some of the cars that you've driven in these movies. Ford versus Ferrari, 904 Porsche, was that right?
Yep.
And you've been in a GT40 replica, 427 Cobra. Talk a little bit about some of the more exciting car culture vehicles you've had the chance to sit in.
Man, so the one that kind of still sticks in my mind recently is the Michael Mann Ferrari movie. We were up in the mountains above the Ford factory, and I got a chance to drive this Mercedes SL 500. 50.
The original.
Yeah, original. This car was original, right?
Yep.
It was a $12 million car, right? And this old guy's telling me everything, and his biggest concern was he's got new hinges on the door, so don't slam the door. Like, it's kind of minor to me, but okay, whatever, And it was crazy. We were running around down these windy roads, and I'm, they're faster. You got to get closer. I'm like, God, I don't want to crash this car. Are you kidding me? And I'm hustling to keep up with everybody because it was tuned well, but it was an early independent suspension, and so the front end didn't know what the rear end was doing, and crazy fun stuff. And at the end of the day, jumps in the car and says, "Hey, thank you very much." Smokes a big cigar and drives off. That was crazy. Smoked a cigar in a $12 million car, but so that was really crazy. Some of the fun stuff we did for Ford versus Ferrari was really fun. I drove that little Porsche. It was obviously a kit car, but still amazing. It had a little Subaru engine in it, and that thing would handle so good. Everybody else was struggling trying to get through some of the scenes. So we do them first at 50% speed and come back at 75%, and then we do, the real take. And I'm coming through there. What I think is 50% of this car would be, and the guys in the Ferraris or the Ford couldn't get through the corners as well, and so I'd have to take a lot off of the speed just because it wouldn't look right.
Unbelievable.
Yes, I mean some of the other crazy stuff. I hated to crash that car. That was fun until I had to crash it.
Wow.
So many other cars. I don't even know what else sticks out. I did get a chance. I was on the same movie with Ron on the Snake and Mongoose. I got a chance to drive some pretty old, real nostalgic, funny cars, which is kind of neat.
What's been the scariest moment you've had?
Yeah, well, you got to think about it that long.
Yeah,
that's a big list.
You're either sifting through a lot or you've never had one.
No, well, I've had plenty, more than my share, I think. So we're talking work or racing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I think
let's talk work.
So one of the scary moments for me, we were again. It's so crazy when these things happen. It's when you don't expect it that they usually get ugly, right? So I was safetying a crash. I wasn't driving that car. They'd switched for characters, and it's supposed to be just a real quick, easy turn and down off the road, right? And we're going to catch it kind of coming down this little hill, and one of those scenes where everybody kind of gets a little excited, and adrenaline goes up a little bit, and the guy kind of added another 5 mile an hour to it, and that extra 5 miles an hour bottomed the car out, and it launched the car forward, right? And this
perfect
was
for the scene, perfect for the movie.
100%. But it was not, with those scenes, we wear kind of fake helmets, right? Because we're period correct, and open cockpit car, and it went over, and I was safetying it to be the responder, and so when I saw inside the cockpit, I just started running already. I mean, because I knew I was out of the scene. And by the time he went over, he rolled like 4 times. No roll cage. The roll cage they had was painted green, so it's a green screen effect. They could take the roll cage out, but it was just a hoop, right? And I knew that when it was over, I saw that there was nowhere, no daylight between the cockpit and the driver, or the ground and the driver. And it rolled and got out there, and car was upside down. I got to him, and he was unconscious, and he woke up, and he heard my voice, and he woke up and said, "Man, I was going to sleep. And I kept remembering I was going to sleep. I was getting tired, and I heard your voice." And he woke up. And the crazy thing about it, I'm getting goosebumps right now. His father had passed away a year that week earlier. And so it didn't happen to me, but it's something I'm involved in. And some of the other things, like, I don't know, I was also doing safety on the Street Outlaws show. And very unfortunately, we lost somebody that day. And to be able to not pull somebody out of a fire is horrific. And I don't wish that on anybody. It's crazy.
Wow. Is it true that you talked to Christian Bale and Matt Damon about trying to fund a funny car team?
No, it's not true.
Okay. You can't believe
I was going to say, I haven't heard that one yet.
Well, you can always go back and try now.
Yeah. I must know. I mean, I know Christian Bale probably watches the show. I mean, he's an avid motorcycle rider, and he gets out and races quite a bit.
Wow. Super cool. I think the most interesting thing both of you have done is work the sidelines as mic holders for Fox in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Right? Tell me about that, John. Ron, actually, let's go to you, Ron.
Well, both of us, we both 49er fans growing up, big time. San Luis Obispo's right halfway between LA and San Francisco, and we grew up Niner fans. And so fast forward, one of the producers on their radio station in the Bay Area was a big time drag fan. Got to know him really well. He invited myself and another friend of mine that's a crew chief on a Top Fuel dragster. It was another major Niner fan to work a Monday night game when the year they went to Super Bowl and played Baltimore Ravens. And so we both flew into Arizona, got to work the sideline. That was cool. And then last minute he called and I was in New Jersey for a Napa appearance. Tommy DeLago was somewhere else. And he said, if you guys can get here, you can work the sideline of the Super Bowl at the New Orleans game at the Superdome. Of course, I flew straight there. He flew in. We got to work, and that's the Super Bowl. The power went out, and then the Niners came back and almost won the game.
That's right.
And, carrying the parabolic mics, that big bubble, what people don't understand is you get a headset, and you can hear conversations like the linemen are having. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
And they use that for the radio, of course. And then so the next Super Bowl that they went to just happened to be right around John's birthday. And it worked out that he was home from shooting a movie, got the same offer from our buddy, and we flew down to Florida, and we both got to work that game. And that's where Chiefs came back and won the game. And so that's 2 losses I was at.
So maybe you won't go to the next one.
Yeah. But pretty cool to be, because we each get to work each sideline, and we were right there for the halftime show, whatever it might be.
Wow.
It's just epic weekends to work 2 Super Bowls like that.
That's fun.
Especially for John's birthday. That was pretty cool for us to fly out together and spend that time.
What a blast. What a blast for both of you.
Pretty neat.
Who's got a final question? And I want to thank you both for being on the program to provide a couple of really cool perspectives on life and racing at different levels. John, who's got the better job?
I don't know. I think him, but I'm sure he'll probably say me. But I'm very fortunate to do what I do. I mean, I can't say I'm very lucky, because there was nothing about luck. It's a lot of hard work. I love what I do, and I wish I would have known earlier in life that I could do what I do and had more focus and do it that way.
You're not getting beaten up anymore, right?
Actually, I am. Actually, I'm trying to branch out from doing car stunts to try and do more fight scenes and stuff.
Just not by me.
Just not by Ron.
Now,
Ron, I think we know your answer. Who's got the better job? You answered that already.
Yeah. He gets to do my job, same thing I do, and other cool stuff. So pretty cool. I think the luckiest is our mom and dad, who, we spend holidays obviously together, but my dad and John's dad. He is just like, he's a pig in mud, man. He gets to watch John race other stuff. We see John, we'll be watching a TV show, and there's John in the credits crashing a car. And then he's got his son, me, that gets to do it for a profession. It's pretty cool for a guy that was a big time racer growing up. And so, like I said before, at the very beginning of this, we were very lucky. Our childhood was it could not have been better. I wouldn't change one thing. We got to be around Can-Am cars and sprint cars and road racing and just drag racing. Such a great childhood.
Yeah, you guys are a ton of fun. I admire both of you.
You got to get a couple drinks in us. That's when the fun starts.
That'll be the outtakes of the program.
Yeah.
Thank you both for being on the program. Ron, thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thank
John,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Great show. Love the show.
What a pleasure to have you on. Thank you. Thanks again.